Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk. I'm your host, Nitin Sharma, the founder of RecTools.io and the voice of RecTalk. Today's episode is actually a Q&A session with myself about running a recruitment agency, getting set up, how to set the agency up and things that you need to know. With me today to kind of support the structure of this and to ask the all-important questions is Kynan Noel of the Marketing Junction by the time this goes out.
By the time this goes out.
Yes, so good to have you on, mate. Appreciate everything you've been doing for us so far.
Good to be here. So I've got some stuff we can go through. I think your listeners are really going to appreciate some of these questions and answers because there's a lot of quite prominent people in the industry who have come on and spoke about their journey. It's been very similar to this, but obviously this might have been like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, however long you've been in the business. So let's just see if that advice may not be as applicable as today, but let's take a look at what you can do today if you are trying to start your own recruitment business to get up and started.
Yeah. I think that's a really key point. There is a lot of there's a lot of people out there that talk about kind of scaling and growing a recruitment agency, which they started back in the early 2000s or 2010s, and times were very, very different then. It's a really good point. What you got for me?
Right. So I think the first thing to do is that obviously we've had the guests speak similar situations to this as well. It's like, when is the time to get set up? When do you make that journey from you're billing, you're doing recruitment, you're probably working for a different agency or business, and when to make that step to go out on your own?
That's a good question. To be honest with you, there's no right time, right? Everybody has like this vision in their head where it's like, when I've got this much money banked, or when I've got this many clients, when I've done this, when I've achieved that, then I'll do it. It's one of those where the timing's right because you're thinking about doing it. And if you're thinking about doing it, do it. There's a really interesting episode coming up with Benjamin Dennehy where he kind of like puts it very clear, right? In the back yourself. What's the worst case scenario, right? The worst case scenario is that you will fail. And I learned very, very early on that failure isn't fatal and success isn't final, right? So you might have highs, and we had some really big highs, but we also failed in the end. But that wasn't the end of it. That wasn't the end of the journey. So the simple answer is, if you're asking yourself when's the right time, you're already there. You're ready. For me, 6 months into working at a big recruitment agency, I'm sat in the reception area and I'm like, I could do this for myself. This is achievable enough to do for myself, and I plan to do that. It then took me maybe another 3 years to build the confidence in my own ability to be like, yeah, now's the time to do it. But for me, the timing was everything, in that I was actually at risk of redundancy and therefore was kind of almost pushed into it. But the plan was always there. So I needed that little gentle push. But let this be your push. If you're thinking about doing it, you're already ready to do it. Do it.
Yeah, I imagine it's people in a certain time in their career where they want to make that jump. But they say a wise man knows what he doesn't know, and then they know what they don't know. I should say, right? So I think with that comes in that self-awareness, and then that's when imposter syndrome tends to creep in. How do you sort of combat that when you start a new business? Because I imagine that's very prominent at the start.
Mate, I get imposter syndrome now. Right? I went to the Recruitment Expo a week or so ago and had people recognising me. Oh, you're the guy from RecTools, you're the guy from RecTalk, oh, we love your podcast, we love this. You should do some events, you should do this, you should do that. And I was sort of like, yeah, what if no one turns up? What if no one cares, right? Everybody has a level of imposter syndrome. I think, I don't think it's unfair to say that if you don't suffer from a level of imposter syndrome, you're probably a narcissist and you probably need a reality check, because normal people always question whether or not they're doing the right thing, or whether or not this is the thing to do or that's the thing to do, right? You're always going to have that. I always think, so I used to, very few people know about this, but I used to do pro wrestling. And
play the clip.
Yeah, we'll slide that into it. I used to do pro wrestling, and even at career ended early because of an injury and so on and so forth, but even on like my last show where I did a comeback for kind of helping out the guys that, you know, it was a farewell show or whatever. I still got those butterflies just before we went out. And I used to be like, fucking hell, when's that dry mouth and that butterfly thing going to finish? When's that going to end? When am I going to be able to just go out there, do my shit, you know, play to the crowd and come back again? And the guy who trained us all was sort of like, guys, I still get it. If you don't have butterflies, if you don't worry, if you don't have a level of anxiety, you don't care.
Mm.
And so I think it's turning that kind of imposter syndrome mindset into I feel like this because I give a shit. And because I give a shit, I should do this.
Mm.
And the minute I don't feel worried, scared or anxious about the outcome of what I'm about to do, I'm probably not where I'm supposed to be anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I routinely go through like phases of having like bouts of imposter syndrome. But how I tend to combat it is like, I'll just get stuck in to whatever you're doing. And then I think eventually once you get stuck in, you're doing it, and if you're more focused on what you're doing than like thinking about like how you're doing it and worrying about what you're doing, you actually can think, oh, I can actually do this. I know what I'm doing. I know how to do this. And it's more, you have a bit more of assertion in your abilities then.
Yeah, I think we hold ourselves to a really high standard, and as so we should, right? But there's a level of perfectionism that comes in. And I know you really well in that you have this, where you question and doubt yourself before you submit a piece of work or whatever. And I'll look at it and go, you got to think, to you will criticise this like until the cows come home, right? But the person who receives it, that's whose opinion matters at that point in time, right? And if they think what you're doing is fantastic, and if they think that's amazing, that's better than anything I've ever seen, then take that, accept that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not them. You know, that's a really hard thing to get your head around. But when we're taking it into sort of setting up your own recruitment agency, if you're nervous and anxious, and what if clients don't come, what if candidates don't come, I can tell you now, there are some absolutely god-awful recruitment agencies out there, and they have clients. So you'll be all right. As bad as that sounds awful.
Yeah. So in terms of first steps, early doors, what's the first things you need to do? What are the first things you should be checking off your list? So you've decided, you're in that journey now, you decided, I'm going on my own. What's the first thing you do?
Where do you start, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you've got to take stock and kind of see where you are. As with any business, whether it's recruitment, whether it's a side hustle, whatever, you've got to have a business plan. And that business plan isn't a wishy-washy kind of airy-fairy document. It's your thoughts that are up here on paper, so that somebody else can see it and somebody else can tell you, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? It's so important. And so I would say, and there's plenty of templates and stuff that are out there for exactly that, right? You can go and get yourself a business. I mean, the British Business Bank actually have a business plan template. It's more geared to sort of securing early stage startup finance, which I'm sure we'll come to, but it's a good framework, right? But it'll give you the chance to get your ideas down on paper so that you can really understand and establish what are you going to do and how, right? But before you look at what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, you've got to look at the why. There's a really good podcast that we did with Abid Hamid, where he talks about the why is more important than the what, because once you know the why, the what happens.
It's the driving force, isn't it?
Yeah. And exactly. So you got to know what your why is. Are you looking to grow and scale and exit a recruitment agency? And if you are, how realistic is that goal and ambition? Look at the stats and the facts and kind of make that decision accordingly. Are you looking for a lifestyle business? What's your driver, right? Is it money? Is it time? Is it a combination of money and time? Is it that you feel that you can disrupt the industry and do it better than what's out there? Have a look at your why.
Do you have your own specific niche?
That's it, right? What am I really good at? And kind of go down that route. So, once you've got that business plan will then help you kind of map that journey out. And that might be, I'm going to cover this particular recruitment sector. That's the area that I'm going to do. I'm going to localize myself in this geographical location, or I'm going to go global with this. And these are the routes to how I'm going to do that. So the very first place to start is your business plan. Once you've got your business plan in order, that will then feed into then all the different bits that you need to achieve what you've set out in that business plan. So without that document and without your thoughts on paper, you're going to be like, you know, here, there, and everywhere. You're not going to have any direction, because that will tell you how much finance you need. That will tell you what marketing efforts you should be putting in. That will tell you the kind of platform that you need to be doing. It will tell you the financial options that you've got available to you. It will tell you then what strategy you need to employ. It will tell you everything. So yeah, start with your business plan.
Okay.
Don't just go and make a logo.
Okay, so all that's well and good, right? So you've got your driver for why you're doing it.
Yeah.
You've got your first steps. Now, obviously, the biggest concern is capital. It's money, moolah, dosh, wonga, right? How much of that do you need, and where do you need to put it?
That's it's a complicated, layered question.
Let's go with how much do you need?
How long's a piece of string?
It
depends entirely on that business plan,
right?
I set up our recruitment business with a loan that I took out from the Startup Business Fund, which was for £12,500, and that was at 6% interest. And I secured a 9-month payment holiday on that, because that was what was right for me. That 9 months allowed me to live on that £12,500 and start building up a pot of fees that we'd made, because I was running a dual desk of temp and perm business, right? I know people that have gone to investors and they've got a steroid injection straight away, day one, because they've invested in the individual and their vision and their goal and their business plan. Hence that document being so important. So they've seen that, they've gone, this person seems like they're worth investing in, and they've given them an office, in Canary Wharf, or an office in Brindley Place in Birmingham, or an office.
All the bells and whistles.
They've given them a budget to hire the first 3 or 4 members of staff. They've gone, right, you've got your staff, you've got your infrastructure, you've got your back office sorted. Go out and fucking build, right? The offset to that is they give up a portion of equity in their business. Now, again, coming back to the why, that might be okay. For me at the time, I didn't really understand I didn't understand that world. And so in my mind, I was like, I don't want to give up any of my business. I want to do this myself, right? Rightly or wrongly. If I went back and did it again, maybe I'd made I'd made a lot of decisions differently, but I maybe have changed that mindset. But yeah, for me, it was a small £12,500 loan. I had conversations with investors and so on, and actually, one of the guys that we were sat talking to, he sort of looked at it and went, guys, what do you need to set up? What, 25 grand? He was like, just go to the bank and get that. Why are you giving up? At the time, we were looking at giving up 30% equity in our business. So why are you giving up 30% of your profit that you're going to make at the end of the year to us, just to bankroll you 25k today? Like, 25k sounds like a lot to you per now, but when you're in the business world, that's an average month. You know what I mean? Like, it's a mind shift change. So how much do you need to set up? It entirely depends on what you want to achieve. If you want an office right from the start, and you want all the bells and whistles, and you're really going after that sort of executive search, headhunting, retained model, then you need a lot more capital in the bank. If you're a recruiter who's like, look, I've got candidates that know me already, I've got a strong LinkedIn presence and profile, I can resource from that, and to be honest with you, I've probably got a client or two that I can rely on to get me through the first 3 months. You don't need anything. You need a month's wage in the bank. That's what you need. So it entirely depends on your business plan.
Right, but let's say we're about to go into sort of expenditure, tech stack stuff. What would you say bare minimum was? Because obviously you've got to have some funds to fund this.
I feel comfortable with either 3 months business running costs in the bank, or at a very, very bare minimum, 3 months salary in the bank. Because if you've got 3 months runway, you're okay, right? Because we all know the big fees and the big perm placements, they are usually 3 month notice. So, you can work to the level of, I just need 3 months runway and I can start things rolling, right? But again, it's horses for courses, because you might be like, look, I don't want to do perm, I want to do temp. And day one, I'm going to get a requisition come through from this warehouse and want 100 staff. So from week 2, I'm going to start making money.
So it's kind of like relative to your business plan, business goals,
Bingo.
how you're getting set up.
Bingo.
But I assume having more cash in the bank when you're ready to go is better than
having some capital in the bank is I know businesses that set up with absolutely nothing in the bank. They got paid by their employer, they served their notice, and they went off and started work straight away, right? And started their business straight away. And as I said, they had a requisition with a client that they'd secured. We need 50 fucking warehouse staff, and they filled those 50 in the first week. And by week 2, they were making revenue. So they didn't need money in the bank, right? I also know people, a couple of lads that have set up recently that raised close to 50 grand and 6 months salary that they personally saved. So they'd put 50 into the business and they'd saved up 6 months worth of take home for themselves so as to not touch that 50k because they're extremely cautious. It all depends on kind of mindset, right?
Okay. All right. So you started up, you plan, you've got some money saved, you're ready to let loose. Right, talk me through, and I've heard this term come up before, I don't fully understand it totally, I've just heard it in the peripheral. What does restricted covenants mean?
Restricted covenants. So most agencies, I would argue all recruitment agencies, make their consultants sign contracts which prevent them from working or competing with their former business, right? So if I've worked for company A, the legal standpoint is that I cannot then go and work for somebody else or myself and go back to the same clients that are owned by company A in terms of client ownership and make revenue there.
Right, so let's say you got a client that's at Every or something, right? And you're hiring, doing HG drivers. You can't go yourself and then go to Every and be like, I'll do it for less.
Yeah, legally you can't. Absolutely, you can't. You're not allowed to. Some are 6 months, some are 12 months. You're not allowed to do that. It's because and actually, if your former employer can, if they can calculate the revenue that they have lost, they can take you to court and sue you for exactly that amount plus damages.
Right. So what if the contract with Every for your former employer expires? Can they say, "Oh, we love working with you. Can we choose to go to you?"
So this is where it's a grey area.
Right.
And look, this is not legal advice at all. This is my opinion on the matter.
Legal disclaimer.
Yeah.
Legal disclaimer.
We'll put that at the bottom there, right?
Yeah.
This is not legal advice. There are some law firms that will say if a client approaches you and wants to work with you as a consultant in your new business or a new place that you're working, that there's an intent that they've contacted you and therefore the restricted covenants cannot apply. There are also solicitors out there that will give you the advice that whilst your former employer can prevent you from approaching existing clients that you were working with, they also can't prevent you from making a living. So if I'm in that scenario, if I've only ever recruited for HGV drivers for Every on that account, and the talent acquisition manager at Every's like, listen, Kynan, I really like you. I know you can't do HGVs, but what you can do for me is do parcel sorters. So can you sort out the parcel sorters for me?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One could argue that, again, it's not enforceable as a restricted covenant by court of law. Some solicitors would argue that's not enforceable. First of all, the TA person's come to you. Secondly, they've said, look, we can't do that because that's what you used to do. But there's this part of the business that we do recruit in that you should and could be recruiting for us with. Look, it's there to protect business. Of course it is, right? It's actually one of the leading reasons why most recruiters don't then go off and set up their own agency. Because they're like...
They've got an established client.
It's the imposter syndrome thing again, right? But let me put it to you this way. If you can win client A, B and C for this business, what makes you think you can't win client D, E and F on this side? Like, why are you doubting yourself, right? And by the time you've worked on these relationships over here and these new ones and sort of curated those into meaningful revenue generating relationships, your restricted covenants will have lapsed. And you can go back to clients A, B and C. And you can incorporate them into your new workflow.
Okay. All right. Let's catch up on the journey then. Okay. You started. You know your plan. You've got some money in the bank. You've researched restricted confidence, so you're not stepping on anyone's toes. You've got some clients coming in. Okay, now you've got your clients coming in. Now you need to establish some structure. So obviously, there's one age rely on a lot of tech to make things convenient, especially if you're the one-man band, to make those processes a bit simpler. What tech do you need?
What tech do you need? Wow. Right, 2024, where we are now, tech stacks that are out there at the minute, and tech in general, has made it so that a recruiter can do 10, 15, 20 times as much with their time, right? So it all depends on what tech you need. Entirely depends on the type of desk that you're running. However, you need a CRM, right? You need somewhere to put that candidate information and that client information, because with the best one in the world, you're not going to remember it all, and a fucking Excel spreadsheet does not do the trick. I was doing some business mentoring for a 5-person business, and they still use Excel. I was gobsmacked. Oh, what the fuck do you mean you're still using Excel? Like, there are free to use CRMs out there if you want to use those CRMs, right? But equally, there are some really enriching CRMs out there. I mean, like, off the top of my head, Paul Sanks's iTris, fantastic bit of kit. And it's affordable, right? And it will be such an important part of your product stack. Same with Voyager. Paul Thompson, his name is, the sales and marketing director there. They've got AI tools, and they can get you started with like almost a sense checked database straight away, right? And there's some really interesting kind of AI movements that are going on within that CRM space, where it's kind of it's really stupid if you don't have a CRM, to be completely blunt. There's businesses like Nodex who have a really functional, very good CRM as part of their recruitment website. So you go to them for your recruitment website, and they make some great websites, but they've also bought on a CRM for you, so that when you're attracting the candidates from your recruitment website, they're already populated and coded and ready to go. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you need a CRM, you need a website. Okay, there's some great people out there that do some really good websites. You know, as I said, I mentioned Nodex. There's Darren, a former podcast guest of ours. Recruiter Web makes great websites. You know, good content management systems within that. They're affordable. Because a website today is more than just a kind of shop window. Mm. And look, you're in the marketing world, you know that more than anybody else, right? A website can drive inbound leads so much more effectively today than it ever had before.
Also, it's a huge red flag if someone Googles you to look into you, to research you on the website.
Take it back to the Every. You're gonna call the talent acquisition team at Every, and you're gonna go, I've set up on my own. They're gonna go, that's fantastic, great. Let's get all the paperwork sent out to you. They're going to receive the paperwork, and they're going to ask you, okay, company reg, blah, blah, blah. They're going to ask you for your website. What are you going to put in there? Your Facebook page? Your LinkedIn page? You need a website, right? Yeah. You need a CRM. You need a website. You've got to have a strong, robust back office setup, which is almost a separate conversation.
So what do you mean by back office setup? So explain that.
So we'll come back to that one then, because that's in its own conversation, right? You've then got to look at things like, okay, how am I going to reach out to my candidates? How am I casting the net out, right? Now, historically, it was you would go to CV Library, Reed, Monster, Total Jobs, JobSite, fucking Indeed, everybody, and you'd buy credits with every single one of them because you want your jobs everywhere, right? Now, I recommend that you go to Wave, who have a media buying service, and you say, hey guys at Wave, I have a budget of this much. I prefer to have access to a CV database, or actually, I prefer to just have a load of job adverts. Here's a sector I recruit within. A company like Wave, and there are others that do this, but a company like Wave have access to a load of data that tells you when the best time of day it is to post, where the best place to post is for that particular type of vacancy, where the best application ratios come from. So they can take your budget of 500 quid and they can maximise that more so than you will ever be able to do. Ever, right? You can go to Wave and go, look guys, I'm recruiting within the tech and digital space, right? The majority of my customer base are X, Y, and Z, you know, energy sector, nuclear and whatever. And they'll say to you, okay, well, we recommend that you dilute use maybe 30 or 40% of that £500 on these job boards, this much over here, and this much on this one. It's a niche one, but it does deliver results, and they'll provide you a package back of that, right? You never used to be able to get that.
So a bit more of a bespoke.
Much more, yeah. Rather than going straight to the organ grinders and saying, please read
what everyone else is doing.
Can I have
basically.
50 fucking CV downloads? And they go, yeah, it's fucking £100 a month. And then you go off and do it again and again and again, you know. So, yeah, you need your job adverts and job credits because you need to attract these people in, right? You need a mobile phone. You need a laptop. Of course you do, right? You want to be mobile, you want to be agile, all that sort of stuff. You need to be able to contact these guys on the phone. Phone calls aren't dead. What else do you need? It's then you got your back office, which I said we'll come on to. But to get started, I mean that's really what you need to get started. Everything else from that kind of you build out. There's all sorts of great tech out there. If you want to outsource your marketing and you want to automate your marketing, you can do that, right? There's businesses out there that do that. Rob, Marketing Junction, where you'll be working, right?
Yep.
It's affordable, but it takes that stress away because you're competing in a new world now.
Great lot of skills, a lot of experience in the industry. Obviously, catering just to recruitment businesses.
Yeah.
So if you want to just jumpstart your marketing straight away, it's a great place to go.
There's automation software out there that can do your outreach for you. Look into that, right? Part of the reason we created RecTools and part of the reason that I'm kind of an advocate for the concept behind RecTools is exactly that. There is so much tech out there. Go and have a look at it for yourself. Go and see what the peer reviews are. Go and see it in an unbiased way, where you're not part of a kickback or a referral scheme. You're getting accurate information.
And really, like a lot of this tech makes especially people who are on like one-man band or two-man or very like small operations a lot easier and convenient and efficient by having more of this stuff. And I like it, like you said, a lot of it is relatively cheap, obviously depending on what package you're.
A lot of these things pay for themselves with the first fee you make.
Yeah.
Right, we'll come on
you
to
get instant returns almost.
That's it, exactly. Right, we'll come on to back office stuff now because I know I'm part of that and that's really important. Before we do, here's a word from our sponsors, not sponsors, our partners at RecTools.io, and that's Zodec. Right, so let's go back onto back office then, because I think that's really, really important. Okay, whether you run a perm business or a temp business or a combination of both, invoice factoring, invoice financing is a incredibly complicated world if you don't know what you're doing. And often what ends up happening is people that are in that world just assume that you kind of get it and you kind of know what it is, but most people don't. Look, the biggest challenge for running a recruitment business is cash flow, right? One thing that recruiters that are sat in recruitment businesses at the minute don't understand or don't appreciate is actually people don't like to pay invoices. As shitty as that sounds, they don't pay. Right? There are a number of tactics that are employed by finance departments. You haven't got the right PO. Our payment dates are next week. You've missed our payment run. It'll have to be on the next payment run. There are any number of reasons why they will not pay your invoice. And I'll be honest with you, the trend tends to be the bigger the business, the better they are at their fucking excuses.
The better tactics.
That's it. And you sign, look, as a small business that's set up last week, you want to work with all the big boys. Of course you do, because you want to be able to be like, we've just won the account with, and we could talk about every example.
And delays are really important as well, because you've got that 3-month runway, right?
Exactly.
So you need to get them in as quickly as
possible. You need that revenue in, right? But a lot of these bigger companies will have payment terms that, again, we're really good recruiters. We're not finance people. So we go off and we set up these businesses and we get a supplier agreement come through from the big business and we're like, fucking yes, mate. And you sign it off and you look at it and it's like, what's 30 days from month end? That sounds 30 days to me. No, that's 60 days, right? Because their month end could be on the 30th of every month. And what they're saying is they will pay you 30 days from their month end. So you've just signed 60-day payment terms. So your candidate started in the 1st of January you ain't getting paid till the 1st of March. It ain't, and that's if they pay on the 1st of March. But their payment runs on the 15th of March. So you got to wait till the 15th of March. But so it comes to the 15th of March and you ring them up and you go, guys, you haven't paid. And they go, yeah, because you haven't got a PO number on there. The fuck's a PO number? It's a purchase order number. We're a big business. We need PO numbers. And they go, well, no one told me that. Of course they didn't tell you that because they didn't want to tell you that. Okay, fine. So then you go back to your contact and you get the PO raised. And then you go back to the finance, the accounts department. You go, here's that PO number. Can I get paid now? And they go, we do payment runs on the 15th of every month. You've got to wait till the 15th of April now. So then now that candidate that started in January, we're now not getting paid to the 15th of April. And that's if that PO hasn't expired. Or that's if there hasn't been, the entity on the invoice number that you've wrote, or the legal entity that you've put in there is not right, actually correct. It's got to be this company here. You need to resubmit it again. I have seen an invoice, and I've witnessed this with my own business. I have seen an invoice go unpaid by excuses, not because of lack of funds, for 6 months. 6 months from the day the candidate started. Now, if you've got 3 months runway in that bank, like you talked about,
you're 3 months behind.
You're in a pretty shit position.
Yeah.
And not to mention all the time that it takes to get through to these accounts teams, to rerun the invoice, to do this, do that. And so invoice finance and invoice factoring is like the solution.
Okay.
What people don't understand is, because we're never told these things, is that 95% of the recruitment industry invoice finance, invoice factor. For all the big banks, commercial, retail and private and so on and so forth, the recruitment industry is their moneymaker. That's their cash cow, right? There are 15, 20, 70 million pound facilities that are out there because businesses would rather have the cash today, or certainly a portion of that cash today. And in its simplest form, it is, you've placed a candidate into a job. That invoice is now validated, right? Because you've got proof that exists. The client email trail and all that exists, right? You've got your confirmation of hire, you've got your revenue recognition, whatever people call it. You can provide that to me, and as an invoice financing company, I will say, I'll tell you what, you've made a 10 grand invoice, that's great. We'll buy that invoice from you and give you a portion of it back. We'll take a portion of it as a cost. And quite often, it's sort of, sub 10%. So if I said to you, listen, you can have that 10 grand and chase that for nearly 6 months, or you can sell it to me and I'll give you 9.5 grand tomorrow.
So you get those funds like much quicker, with a degree of a certainty, especially if you're in your early days, which is very important.
That's it.
And they obviously get the slightly larger sum with their 10% fee.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer, really, isn't it?
In the temp world, it's really, really a no-brainer, right? There's very few recruitment, there's very few invoice financing providers or factoring suppliers that are out there that will fund the full perm invoice, right? Perm tends to be one of those where, at best, you may get sort of 50, 60, 70% of the invoice, but it's still better than having nothing, right? Especially when you're cash strapped. And a lot of these facilities you can turn on and off as well, so you don't have to put every invoice through them. If you've got a good relationship, you're dealing with the accounts team, all that sort of stuff, you can do that, right? But temp is where it is. My business nearly shut down in like 4 weeks after working with DHL because we put a temp in there, but because we weren't on the PSL and because we didn't have a PO number, our invoice financing provider wouldn't fund the invoice. So we were, we'll just do it ourselves at £500 a day. After week 3 and them not paying, we were kind of like, fuck, we're going to run out of cash. We can't do this. Like, that's one candidate. It's costing us £500 a day. Imagine we had 3 of those. That'd have wiped us out completely. That'd have killed the business off completely. Right? Whereas in the temp world, it's so simple. You sell that invoice because your temp goes into work, you pay that temp X, right? For ease of maths, let's say you pay the temp £100 a day and you charge the client 150, right? By the end of that 5 days, you've got an invoice that then is, the 150 times the 5, right? And so I was like, 750? You could pay that 750 out of your own bank, or you sell it to the invoice finance company. The invoice finance company pay the candidate, and your margins that you've made, that £50 a day, they'll pay you that as well, because they're going to go to the client and they're going to get the money off them, less the charges. So it's just a better way of utilising debt. It's really funny, right? Where it made a lot of sense to me was, as a consumer, as an individual, not consumer, as a normal individual, you are taught to, don't have any debt, don't have loans, don't have credit cards, don't have overdrafts, that kind of thing, right? But business debt and personal debt, two very different things. Utilising facilities within the business debt environment to ensure that you're able to survive and continue moving forward is so important. And it's the key differentiator between businesses that survive and don't survive, and businesses that thrive and just survive.
There's good debt and bad debt, and
that's it.
but you
exactly.
always talk the horror stories about debt.
And look, there are some great people out there. Obviously, we partner with Zodec, and we partner with them because we genuinely respect what they do. I'm a former Zodec customer myself. I know what they're like. They're very, very good. But there's brokers out there. So I'm a control freak. So I wanted to deal with the people and go to my bank and say, give me the options, and you give me the options, and I want to look and compare them and that kind of thing. There's people out there that don't necessarily know that, so they don't want to do that, they don't know how to do that. Go to your brokers, utilise the brokering services. There's Bobby Russell at Contact Business Finance, fantastic. Terry Wolfendale at Adept Business Finance, he used to be the MD of Pulse Cashflow, now has set up his own brokerage firm, right? He can explain things in ways that I would only dream of being able to. There's Simon J from Compare Factoring. There's plenty of brokering services out there, and they're all on the website on RecTalk.io, where you can literally go, here's this situation, here's the information, here's what I'm willing to pay, go and find me the best deal. And they'll do that. That's their job. They'll go and find you the best deal. Yeah. So back office is extremely, extremely important, because it could be anything from running and doing everything from the invoice, the credit control, raising the invoice, raising PO numbers, chasing PO numbers, everything, to client doing their own credit control. You might literally just want to use the facility to draw down on the funds and do everything else yourself.
It's not mandatory that you do this.
No.
But the point is that you want to be spending the majority of your time, if not all of your time, bringing in new clients and billing, right? So this saves you a truckload of work.
Yeah. And as I said, there are some
freeing you up to do this sort of stuff.
I got this term from Bobby at Contact Business Finance. CHOC facilities. I was like, that sounds fucking. What's CHOC? Client handles their own credit control, right? Which is great for some businesses who have got a husband-wife duo where one of them is doing the admin, she's very good, or he's very good at the admin side of things, right? Mm-hmm. So if you don't want the invoice finance company chasing the debt for you because you're worried they might be too aggressive or they might be a certain way, you can handle that yourself. You can still do that yourself, right? And there's loads of different stuff out there. There's loads and loads of information out there, right? But key things to point out are, it's confidential. They don't go in dick swinging. We bought this invoice from them. They're not debt collectors. They're not debt. You haven't sold the debt. It's a finance facility, and they're quite often offered by your own banks as well. So if you prefer to do that, do that.
Okay, that's great. So let's catch up with the journey so far then.
Yeah.
Okay, for all those listening. So you started your business. You've got your plan. You've got your capital.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your why. You've got your tech stack. You're all set up and ready to build. Now you're operating. I'm assuming you've got clients in and everything. Mm-hmm. You've got replacing candidates. You're billing. What else are you supposed to consider? Like, what are sort of the pitfalls, the easy things to fall into when you're running a recruitment business?
Yeah.
From your perspective.
Yeah, that's good. Really good question. I think it's really important to treat it, and I got this from Abid. It's really important to treat it like a proper business. Stupid as that sounds. It might just be you in your back bedroom. It might just be you in your garden shed. But treat it as a proper business. Make sure you take time to stop in the weeds day to day and have a business meeting with yourself if that happens. Or go and get a business mentor, go and join a group or whatever, but try and hold yourself to account against your business plan. Look back at your business plan. What did you set out to achieve? Make sure you've set yourself objectives and targets and hold yourself accountable to those. Because otherwise what ends up happening is you just end up kicking the can down the road. And there's a term, and it's very, very kind of evident within the recruitment industry, called zombie businesses. They're not dead, they're not alive, they're just trudging along,
stagnating.
That's it. Just a zombie business. And that's the risk you run by not constantly coming back to that all-important business plan and going, right, this is what we set out to do. Have I done it?
Okay.
And if I haven't done it, then why? Why haven't I done that? Some people are very good at self-evaluating and critiquing themselves. Some people are just not, right? But they're not. There's a lot to admit to yourself where your flaws and stuff are. It's so important. And if you're not, then get somebody else to do it for you. Get somebody to hold you to account. That could be a fellow business owner, that could be a mentor, that could be a family member, whoever. But get somebody to hold you to account to those things, because we all need that level of accountability.
Okay. I think that's decent, solid advice.
Yeah.
Sounds like it comes from a lot of wisdom and experience. I'm
sure
there's some examples
and a lot of mistakes, mate. A lot of mistakes.
We'll get to that at the end on our final thoughts section.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at, obviously the biggest thing is billing and getting vacancies. What would you say is like your biggest tip or your methodology or the best approach, best practice for getting vacancies?
Yeah. So I'm going to do an entire video on exactly this, right? Business development within recruitment and the strategies that work. But for me,
give a sneak peek.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 4 things that you need to be doing consistently and continually in your business development, right? The first is the all-important content marketing, right? You need to be placing out and putting out content on LinkedIn, on whether it's your business page or your personal page. People need to know who the fuck you are. And there's more and more noise on LinkedIn now, and where it used to be that a post would circulate for a few days, and back in the day, within a few weeks, it now circulates for a few hours. So you need to be shouting about who the fuck you are and what the fuck you do in every single chance you get. And there's a whole strategy around how to build content out, and a strategy and sort of way to do that, which we'll all talk about in other videos. The other is the 3 then types of business development that you should be doing every single time. The first is specking. You need to be specking into clients, and you need to be specking into live vacancies, right? And so specking is speculatively sending a CV. So I'm working with Kynan. Kynan currently works at the Marketing Junction. He is their marketing manager, whatever job title you're going to have, right? Here's the things that he does. I should be sending your CV to every single one of Marketing Junction's competitors. If I've got you registered with me, they all need to know that you are registered with me and that you're looking for work. Now, how I do that might be that I blind your CV. You might say, listen, I don't want word getting out, don't do that. And I can then say, yeah, that's fine. I have a marketing manager who works for a recruitment marketing agency that could do this, and this, portfolio of this, client base like this. Would this person be of interest? And then confidentially, I can then provide your full CV in the future, right? But you need to be specking into relevant businesses. Take your candidates to market, right? The second is you absolutely need to be doing lead chasing, right? Because that's the bread and butter. You jump onto Indeed, you jump onto TJ, you jump onto LinkedIn, wherever you can, Google for jobs. You find out who the fuck is hiring, right? And ring them up. Have a conversation with them. You might find 9 out of 10 times you are not on their PSL, they're not looking to engage with agencies, they've got enough candidates in the process, whatever. You're not going to know until you actually make that phone call, right? You are going to miss every single shot that you never take. Of course you are, right? Then the final piece is the relationship-based business development, right? So this ties in kind of with the content marketing piece, because if you're putting out polls and research and adding value and content And the content marketing piece is a big piece in that video that I'll put out, which will be around adding value to your prospects without the need or the desire for a transaction to be made on that time or that day. You've got something to call them about. But actually, you are a recruiter in the industry in which they operate in. Call them and talk to them. Find out what their pain points are. Find out what they struggle with. Introduce yourself to them. I hate the introduction thing, but introduce your services and who you are to them. Talk about a candidate, spec a candidate into them. But you need to be doing little bits of kind of value add and building out a relationship. Because I'll tell you what doesn't happen, right? People bang on about, you need to build relationships. Right, you can't ring a fucking client and say, hi, it's Nitin from RecTalk. I want to build a relationship with you. You never ever walk up to a girl and go, I want you to be my girlfriend. That's not how it works. No. So, but for some reason in recruitment, and all these fucking recruitment gurus and all these fucking, I'm not going to say the twat's name, but all these people, you should be fucking bashing the phones and building relationships. Bashing the phones and building relationships are not two things that happen step by step. Right? You don't just go from, I started making more phone calls and then all of a sudden I started making relationships with people. That's not how it works. How it works is you do a combination of value add, you do a combination of content marketing, you do a combination of providing information and consultancy to those prospects.
You're saying you got to court them, you got to woo them.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Just driving up to them in your fucking flash car and be like, get in, I want you to be my girlfriend, that's not going to work, right? Despite what Uncle Gary tells you, it's not going to fucking work. So you got to be realistic about how you do that. Now, the problem where people might fail most of the time that I see, and where we at our lowest points were guilty of, was you end up doing just one of those four things. You just purely speculatively send CVs out, and that's all you do day in, day out. And then an interview request comes in, and you book that interview, and you hope to pray to God that the fucking candidate's good for that job because you want to make that bastard fee, right? Or you go, we've got a bit of money in the bank, let's purely focus on relationships. And you go off, and it's Easter, and you think, let me buy a ton of fucking Easter eggs, and let me ring them up and go, hey, we're in the area, let me drop off some Easter eggs. And then you go off and you drop off some Easter eggs, and a handful of vacancies come in because they're like, fuck's sake, man, they did give us some chocolate, so let's just give them something, right? Right, but that's what ends up happening. Yeah, your pity date, your pity show, right? Yeah. And that's what ends up happening. Whereas you've got to do all four. You've got to be visible on LinkedIn. Do you know how many people say to me, mate, I see your shit on LinkedIn all the time? And I always say to them, it's not by accident. It ain't fucking like, oh wow, that surprises me. So of course you see my shit on LinkedIn all the time.
In this metaphor, right, I loosely tie this metaphor together.
Go on.
So you, as much as you want them to be your girlfriend, you want them to be your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. I want them to want me to be that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, it's this, there's a fucking...
You got to get in on merit.
Yeah. It's this there's a clip, I used to love it. It was like this guy sitting in a law firm or whatever, and he's like, hi Rebecca, and the guy's like, her name's not Rebecca. He's like, yeah, I know, but she's going to think that I think her name is Rebecca, and then she's going to be like, my name's not Rebecca, and I'm going to say, yeah, well, oh, sorry, my mistake. I thought you were because, there was this girl I went out with called Rebecca, looked exactly like you, I didn't call back. And then psychologically she'd be like, what the fuck, man? This guy rejected somebody who looked exactly like me. Do you know what I mean? And it's that psychology game of like making them want you, right? It's exactly the same thing. So when I got people saying to me, oh, fucking, I see your shit on LinkedIn all the time. Of course you do. That's not by accident. That is not by accident. It costs me £0 and 0 pence to post something on LinkedIn. And when people sit there and say to me, I just don't know what to type, I don't know what to write. Unless you've been sat in your bedroom recruiting, or your fucking coffee shop or wherever, not doing anything all day, you have something to fucking write about. I have something I could post out today. I made a mistake today. I came in, I set up this podcast where you were supposed to be here. Two things. Number one, I thought it was a fucking different guest. Because I didn't check my diary because I've been so stupidly busy. And number two, I didn't double check with the fucking guest that he was coming. And guess what? He no-showed. So, fucking hell, guys, everybody makes mistakes, but that's my learn from today. I need to double check every one of my fucking bookings, especially one that was made back in January, right? But there's content. There's a fucking post you can put out. I spoke to this candidate, and this candidate's having this issue. And is anybody else having this?
And it's got authenticity, right?
Right?
That's the
because
thing.
It's real. It happened.
Yeah.
It's not, I offered a job to a tramp today who had no experience and 2 toes. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, these bullshit fucking,
people writing like, I was
yeah.
watching Jurassic Park the other day.
Yeah.
I think running in a park with dinosaurs is a lot like recruitment.
Yeah. Well, my 7-year-old asked me today about the fucking economy. No, Brian, your 7-year-old didn't ask you about the economy, did they? Fuck off.
Those ones like that are clearly fabrication to be like push a very clear narrative. They're very as you know, subtle as you think you're being. They're very, very obvious. I recommend you don't do that.
Yeah, just don't do it. Yeah,
I think
exactly.
if you're just very genuine about what's going on in your life, what you're achieving, what you're not achieving, it's so much more relatable.
Holly Matthews put it really well, right? When she was like, do you know when you got these people that post out that they've completed a marathon, or, you know, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, here's me on holiday in Dubai or whatever, and how much hatred we give those people because we're like, oh, well, you know, you're just clout chasing or whatever. Like, you don't know how much shit that person had to go through, what sacrifice that person had to do, what they had to go without to be able to afford that moment of happiness, right? So what's happening now is that more and more people are understanding that that's how the world works, and so you're getting less and less kind of like arsehole. Like, there used to be that the loud minority were the arsehole trolls, whereas now you get a lot more people that are like, no, good for you, mate, fucking good for you, because people want to see people do well, right? But if you want to do well in your recruitment business, don't just do one thing that works and keep doing that. There are 4 things that I've defined out here for you that I'll go into more and more detail in another video that you should be doing every fucking day of the week, because at some point this will pay off, and then that will pay off, and then that will pay off, and then this will pay off again, and that will pay off again, and that will pay off again. Otherwise, you just keep doing that one thing about, I can only do spec work. Yeah, I know, that's why you're now struggling. Because we're now in a market where spec work doesn't work, or wasn't as effective as it was back in 2022. And then you had a shit 2023, and now you're sitting crying about it.
Yeah. It's one of them. You know what I mean? I just think that, like I said, if you be as genuine and like, I mean, like, I'm starting to get into it now, this whole like personal marketing stuff. I think it's more going to be very important for me. And I'm that same thing where I'm like, I know it's like, you can see the type of stuff you see on LinkedIn, like 80% of it is just like quite cringe. Yeah. It's cringe, right? It's really annoying. It's like, it's so fake, it's so false, but there's loads of gems in there. People are just being like genuinely authentic, and they're trying to give you a bit of wisdom or share an experience that they think will be useful to you. I think you should only put those things out there that, obviously, it is a personal brand marketing. It is content, but
you'd be surprised at the authentic stuff, how often and how long that resonates for. I had somebody message me and wanted to meet up next week, and I was like, I can't, I'm going away to the lakes. And he messaged back and was like, oh, bro, you're always up there, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, I like it up there. He's like, yeah, you got married up there as well, didn't you? And I'm like, I didn't fucking tell you that, did I? He's like, no, you put it on LinkedIn like a few months back or a few years back, I remember. You're always going on about like Lake Districts and how much you love going up there, and every time you're up there you take a really nice picture and stuff. And that stayed with that person to the point where they were like, I know you as the guy from LinkedIn who does RecTalks and the RecTalk podcast and used to run a recruitment agency, and you love the Lake District. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's authentic. That is genuinely authentic. Because that person, I didn't need to prompt him or anything. That person was like, yeah, I know that about you.
Well, that's the thing with LinkedIn now, LinkedIn especially, is that the social media lines are blurring, where it's like this stuff where it's like people are just constantly promoting, where the content on LinkedIn used to just feel like ads, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just feels like just promotions all over the business. Yeah, buy into me, buy into my service, blah, 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 buy my product, whatever. But now it's sort of been into like, it's like human interest stories, you know what I mean? Where it's like you're connecting with that person, which is like an element of what social media is supposed to be.
We all bang on about people buy from people, right? The full phrase is actually people buy from people they like, and people buy from people like them, right? How do you know if you like somebody or not if you don't know anything about them? How do you know if somebody is like you or not if you don't know anything about them, right? And social media, and LinkedIn, especially within recruitment, is such an amazing platform to be able to sell not just your services in your profession, but actually who you are as a person, and get people to work with you and buy into you for you, right? Uncle Gary has fucked up so many people's mental health and businesses by badmouthing them, right? By bully tactics, by essentially being like, right, well, if you're not going to work with me and you're not going to give me a kickback, then I'll tell you what, you bastard, I'm going to ruin you. Right? And I have met and spoken to several people who've ended up shutting down businesses because Uncle Gary, like, blacklisted them, right? Uncle Gary has tried that with me. It doesn't work. Because people see me on LinkedIn and they're like, I like this guy though. I know what you're saying, and yeah, he probably gives you a bit of jip and stuff, but actually, when I meet him, I like him. And when I meet him, I got told the other day at the recruitment expert, fucking hell, you're exactly like you are on LinkedIn, aren't you? Like, yeah. There's no persona. There's no like LinkedIn imagery. This is me.
Character.
I will chat shit to you all day long if I have to, and if I have time to. You know what I mean? But I will be as blunt as I am on the podcast, as I am on LinkedIn, as I am face to face. There's no act, you know what I mean? And that level of authenticity will carry you through. I've had clients that refuse to work with me because they don't like how I am, because I'll challenge on shit salaries or making people work in the office 5 days a week. And that's okay, because I don't want to fucking recruit for those people anyway. Right? And I've had clients that will go, no, we only want to work with you because you tell it how it is. You tell us how it is. Because we've got these and what are your perks and benefits? This and this. Right, I'll ask again what your perks and benefits, because fucking free tea and coffee is not a perk and benefit. Next you'll be telling me you got beanbags and fucking like a pool table.
Toilet facilities.
You know what I mean? Yeah. We provide oxygen for you to breathe. Like, you know,
car park on site.
yeah.
So,
fucking on site. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like
the one that always cracks me up when he goes nearby transport connections.
Yeah. There's a shed of a bus stop.
There's a bus stop down the road.
Yeah. That's every hour at best.
Yeah.
This is it. But yeah, so you want to succeed in your own recruitment business, find out, like, be who. My advice is always be who you are, but amp that shit up to 10. Do you know what I mean? Like, because that's what people need. They want authenticity.
Yeah.
And don't qualify in. And again, this is I'm treading on the toes of the business development video that I'm going to do. But do not qualify in as many people as you can. You want to qualify out the people you don't want to work with. You don't like that I swear, don't want to work with you then. Because I'm not going to change how I am. Because if I don't like something, I'm going to tell you. You know, you don't like that, you know, I present a certain type of candidate. You know, because I don't discriminate, as an example. I don't want to work with you. Do you know what I mean? You want to qualify out as many people as you can. Because then the ones that are left, you're not selling to them. They're buying from you. It's an odd mentality, but it works.
A good one to adopt.
It works.
All right, so final thoughts then. I think a good question for our final thoughts piece would be that if you could give a single piece of advice to you when you first started your recruitment business right now, we can open a window through time, right?
Yeah.
You could give the Nitin of, what was it, 2010 or 2011 or wherever it was, and say, this advice, what would it be? And also you're speaking to this listener.
Keep control and on top of everything that happens in your business, because it is your business. The minute you trust somebody else to do something and they don't look after it the way that you would have, you've only got yourself to blame.
Yeah.
That is about as fair as I can put it without being like, my business partner fucked me over.
Yeah. Okay.
Fuck that guy.
Okay. Okay, I think that was some really good points we went over. So if you are looking to start a recruitment business, obviously if your time's coming up, you're ready to take that step, here are the steps to go through it, here are the do's and do nots.
Look, get in touch with me. I connect with absolutely anybody on LinkedIn. I'm happy to offer you advice, guidance, support. I am starting up a business. By the time this launches, I'll probably already have done it, but by the time this podcast goes out. But I am starting a business mentoring service at a very, very sort of affordable rate, for the reasons that I want to help people succeed, not try and line my own pockets. I make enough money doing the stuff that I do that allows me to do some fun shit and cool shit that I like to do. This is about helping people kind of get through the initial stages and make sure that you're in a steady and stable ship for the long term, not just kind of are gonna burn out and sort of fade away, right? So, but yeah, no, thanks for listening. This has been good.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
no worries. Anytime.